I'm going to tell you to do this. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Corporate Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Paul Heath, and I am the chairman of this committee. I will now go through a few items of housekeeping before we proceed with the main business of the meeting. We are not expecting a fire alarm this evening, but should one sound, please can members use the exit to the rear of the chamber and assemble in the car park. Please could you also make sure that your phones and devices are switched to silent. And for me, if members wish to speak during our debates this evening, please can you indicate by raising your hand and I will come to you at the appropriate time. Could I also remind everyone to use their microphones when speaking, including myself, and to switch them off when they have finished. Could I also remind you that this meeting is being webcasted. I will now proceed with the main business of the meeting. Item number 1, which is the apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies from Councillor Jim Bond, but I am not aware of any other apologies, and I do believe everyone else is here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Right, so if there are no further apologies, I will proceed with agenda item 2, which is the declaration of interests. Do members have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest, or non-pecuniary interest that they wish to declare this evening? If so, please state the item and the nature of your interest. If there are none, I will proceed to item number 3. But of course, if during our debates an interest does come up, if you could declare it at the time, please, members. And item number 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting. Please, could I have a proposer to approve the minutes as an accurate record of our meeting of the Corporate Scrutiny Committee held on the 28th of January 2026? Councillor Ramage, thank you. And could I ask for a seconder, please? Councillor Beavis. The minutes have been moved and seconded as an accurate record. All those in favour, please indicate by a show of hands. Thank you. Thank you, members. That was unanimous, so there's obviously none against. Therefore, the minutes are approved. Thank you, Jessica. So we will move on to item number 4, which is the public question time. Members, I can confirm there are no registered speakers for this evening's meeting, and so we will now proceed with agenda item number 5, which is the annual report of the Community Safety Partnership for 2025-26. So item number 5, the report. Members, the annual report of the Community Safety Partnership is set out on our agenda on pages 5 to 27, and in attendance with us this evening we have Tracy Parry, Community Services Manager at the Council, as well as Councillor Charlie Dervish in her capacity as Cabinet Member for the Communities. Welcome to you both. Tracy will present a report to the committee, after which point I will open the floor to questions from members. Tracy, please could I invite you to present your report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. So the report before you this evening is to provide an overview of the work of the Community Safety Partnership for the period 2025 to 26. A Community Safety Partnership is made up of a number of statutory partners, the Local Authority Braintree Council, Essex Police, the Fire and Rescue Service, the National Probation Service, Mid and South Essex ICB, Essex County Council and East Light Community Homes. And the purpose of the partnership is that we work together to protect local communities from crime and help people feel safer. As a CSP, we have a statutory responsibility to carry out an annual strategic assessment, and that's as per the legislation in the Crime and Disorder Act. And that allows us to collate a range of data from a range of sources that are linked to community safety, so police, fire, drugs and alcohol data, domestic abuse data, and we analyse that data, and from that we use the findings from that to come up with the priorities for the year ahead. So the priorities for 25-26 were protect the vulnerable, promote healthy relationships, keep safe online, build community resilience and promote safety in our communities. The partnership is made up of a number of groups. So there is a strategic group, which is the responsible authority group, and they provide the strategic overview and direction of the work of the partnership. The Community Safety Hub is the operational arm of the CSP, and that has a range of partners from both statutory organisations and the voluntary sector. It's an operational group. It meets on a monthly basis and it focuses on crime trends, enforcement, rough sleepers. We have partners come and present information on services that are available that link to community safety. And then we also have a part of the meeting where partners can present real-time cases relating to ASB exploitation, where there may be vulnerable people within their communities. We also have a domestic abuse subgroup, and that basically discusses domestic abuse cases where an individual has contacted us as the local authority for homelessness advice, or an application has been made to the housing register. And again, that partnership will discuss each case, it will establish the level of risk, and then partners will put in place measures and interventions to manage that risk moving forwards. One of the new partnerships since the last time I came and presented is the Rough Sleeper Partnership, and this is a partnership that brings together those that are working with rough sleepers, so organisations like Chess, but we discuss newly verified rough sleepers that have been identified from across the district, and again it's about putting interventions and plans in place to support those individuals, with the aim eventually of getting them back into some sort of accommodation. We also have our local exploitation group, and this is where we discuss children and young people who are at risk of exploitation, and these are young people that aren't known to family solutions or social care, so on the brink or currently at low risk. But the whole point of the meeting is to discuss those young people and again put in place solutions and interventions so that that risk does not escalate, or hopefully not escalate. So they're the groups within the partnership. From a county-wide point of view, we also sit on the county-wide CSP, which is Safe for Essex. We also represent the Essex Community Safety Network. We're members of the Antisocial Behaviour Strategic Group, the Mid-Essex Missing and Child Exploited Group, Prevent Delivery Group, and the Violence Against Women and Girls Strategic Group. So some key achievements, and I haven't put them all in the report, but they're all in the annual report, which is attached to this. So I will start with Safer Streets. So members, you will recall previously we had Safer Streets money for Whittam and then Halstead. We were successful in securing further funding of over £138,000 from the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, focusing on Braintree Town Centre. Safer Streets, the programme aims to reduce antisocial behaviour, neighbourhood crime and violence against women and girls, whilst at the same time hopefully improving perceptions of safety through a combination of enforcement, prevention and community engagement. So we are still in the midst of delivering Safer Streets Braintree, but we will be enhancing our CCTV coverage within the town centre and also in Weavers Park. We've already delivered some theatre-based work in Alec Hunter and Notley High School around healthy relationships and consent. We have the youth service out and about in the town centre engaging with young people to seek their views. We have some support for our Neighbourhood Watch team. So we're really pleased that we've actually sort of been third time lucky in getting Safer Streets funding for this district. A lot of other local authority areas have only had one, if any at all, so we're very proud of that. We also held an ASB workshop. So members, you're probably aware that antisocial behaviour can be reported to us as the local authority, the police and the number of housing associations that we have with houses in this district. So we had a multi-agency meeting, we had some consultants in to deliver that workshop, and the aim of that was to strengthen partners' understanding of the legislative powers available to tackle antisocial behaviour. It was a fantastic workshop. I think we probably had pretty much all of our housing associations represented, along with the police, our streets and enforcement team, housing and our team from communities. And you'll see there the feedback from attendees was highly positive. And actually we know that since that workshop, our partnership working with our housing associations in particular has really improved. The fire service, their education team have again delivered a comprehensive programme of education and prevention activities. So throughout 25-26, they engaged with 13,951 children and young people and delivered 173 sessions covering a range of themes. And that is really down to the schools as to what they want the fire service to come in and deliver. So there were things around water safety, knife crime, cyber safety, and that's a programme that is ongoing and is available to all schools across the district. Domestic abuse, so we delivered 3 events in the main towns as part of the 16 Days of Activism, which is an international initiative aimed at raising awareness of domestic abuse, and we engaged with over 160 individuals at those 3 events. And actually it was nice, when I say nice, it was positive, because not only did we raise awareness, we spoke to victims on the day, but we also spoke to perpetrators, and we were able to signpost them to appropriate services. We also delivered some technology facilitated abuse training to 43 partners, and that was around raising awareness of the increase of technology as a tool for coercive and controlling behaviour. So things around domestic abuse are constantly changing and evolving, and obviously we would like to keep as up to date as possible and ensure that our partners are aware also. And just finally, road safety. So Essex Police have their automatic number plate recognition systems. They've been funded for some new systems, and they are able to now go out and provide enhanced support and enforcement activity to help keep our roads a lot more safer. It's real-time monitoring, and then that enables them to be able to identify uninsured vehicles, stolen vehicles, and those that may be linked to criminal activity. And that unit has been deployed on 8 separate occasions. And as you'll see from the report, it's resulted in 3 arrests, including 2 for drug-related offences and 1 for traffic-related offence. The other achievements are in the annual report as an appendices. As you're aware, the Community Safety Partnership isn't just the council. And whilst we bring this report to share with you at this committee, the strategic assessment and the action plan is actually agreed by the Responsible Authority Group and signed off by the Office of the Police Fire and Crime Commissioner for Essex, as that is where the CSP get their funding from on an annual basis. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Tracy, for your report. Do members have any questions that they would like to ask of Tracy or Councillor Dervish? If so, please raise your hands. Councillor Abbott, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you for your report. And what I'm going to say doesn't detract at all from all that good work. You know, particularly in areas such as safety of women and girls and preventing domestic violence. They're all incredibly important. I just wanted to focus on the last thing you talked about, which is road safety. Yeah. You said about achievements, but actually all the stats are going in the opposite direction. Last year was the worst year for road deaths in Essex since 2016. 60 people lost their lives on Essex roads, and far more than that was seriously injured. You didn't mention that the police do have a reporting system. You may remember the name of it. I can't remember the name of it at the minute, but there's a reporting system where you can send videos, dash cam or stills, of drivers' aggressive behaviour or illegal behaviour. So that's another way that things can be reported. But the point I wanted to make is that things are going in the wrong direction on the roads, and not just things like speeding and deaths. I would say from my experience, littering is getting worse, road rage is getting worse. People who live near busy roads, their experience of living is increasingly dominated by speeding, traffic at volume, and the things that unfortunately a proportion, a percentage of drivers do. And the police response, I have to say, is woeful. So in Rivenhall, ironically, the picture that was taken in the report is of Oak Grove Rivenhall. Now, we have asked the police to enforce against speeding down there and also against HGVs breaking the weight limit. and going down to the railway bridge and then getting stuck and having to turn around. I put an FOI in a couple of months ago and said, how many times have the police attended to lorries that got stuck at the railway bridge? And when I say stuck, that means they have to turn them around. Turning around 40-tonne lorries on a rural road is really difficult. If they hit the bridge, the main line between Norwich and London is shut. The economic fallout from that is major. They attended 21 times in the last 2 years. My second question was, how many times have you issued drivers with tickets? 0. So this is actually speaking to the drivers who've breached the weight limit and they're doing nothing about it. So I'm not expecting you to solve all these problems, but I did see that the Essex road safety strategy is out to consultation. That concluded in April 26. So presumably we'll get the results of that and whatever the new administration at county thinks they're going to do. But for those of us who represent communities, my community, I've got the A120, the A12, a lot of connecting roads between Wisham and Braintree, we think this is a really major issue. And I'm just wondering what the District Council, what more you think you can do working with partners.
So I think you're right. Obviously, the PFCC has got a zero vision in relation to deaths on roads and serious and killed and seriously injured. I think it's quite a difficult one. One of the things that the fire safety team do is do some work in schools to try and educate the schools for when they become drivers. So that's probably one thing that they do. We have a new PSPO across the district now, Public Spaces Protection Order for vehicular nuisance, and that covers the whole of the district. And that will mean that the police and our street scene enforcement team can deal with things like car racing and car meets, which I appreciate is not what you're talking about this evening. So I think, and in relation to the police and when they come out, I think, Councillor Abbott, all I can really do is take that back and have a conversation with our police colleagues. We meet with the police on a monthly basis. I pretty much speak to them daily sometimes. So I think if that's okay with you, I'll take that away and feed that back to the police.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Tracy, for the report and for actually going through it. I mean, beautifully laid out. It's nice to see photographs. I think for those of us that perhaps find just reading, it's really good to actually get an idea of what's going on. And there's a huge amount going on. And I know that the Braintree Safer Streets, the additional funding there, we were really lucky to get that after having the other two towns funded. Just and reading through it, I suddenly thought, do we have any idea once LGR is here, there will be no PFCC? Have we got any idea where funding will come from? I know that we get the core funding and then there are so many other areas like Safer Streets that's funded by the PFC, but from the Home Office originally. Do we know how we're going to get that funding in the future?
I don't know. I don't know whether my director does.
So I think the PFCC is more linked to the mayoral authority. So until that comes in, then I think my understanding is that it sits with the PFCC at the moment. Once the mayoral authority, once a mayor is elected, then the powers and funding that currently sit within the PFCC would move over to the mayor. And so it would come from what that looks like at the moment. We've got no visibility of that at this stage.
Can I just come back on one more? So we know we've got funding for this year. Yes. The PFCC will not be here in 2028. Yeah. So there's a year there. Do we?
So I think that's kind of tied up with what's happening around the mayor and devolution. So I think the plan would be that one would go as the other one starts, rather than there being a gap between the two.
But we haven't got any forward.
But we don't know what that looks like yet.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. What I would actually like to say is it's good and well everybody around here saying we've been lucky to, or you've been lucky, we've been lucky to get a third tranche of funding for safer streets and community orders. We haven't been lucky. It's because the two previous have worked so well that it's very hard to argue against your case. You've done such a good job there, and I know from the officer we've got in Whittam and speaking to people at House with theirs as well, that they're serving such a good role that you should be very proud of what you've achieved, not think yourself lucky. Councillor Courtwell, please.
Thank you. Tracy, thank you for that. In the last 6 months, I've had 7 constituents call me about being run over by children on their bicycles on the pavements in Earls Cone. So I suppose it's a road safety thing or a highway safety thing. What they've sort of haven't called the police. I mean, they didn't reprimand the children. They didn't quite know what to do. But it seems these aren't electric bikes. These are children herring up and down the high street in Earls Cone. And I hadn't sort of clocked this myself. But is there... I don't even know the law as regards bicycling on the pavement. And what you do about that. But 7 people in 6 months is a big deal. And these were all elderly women actually trying to shop anyway. And they were sort of menaced by quite young children, which they found disconcerting to say the least, if not depressing. I don't know the law. Is there anything we can do about this? I mean, or is it just, do we just ignore it? I mean, it seems quite a big deal to me.
Chairman, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a menace, isn't it? I would say that the route would be through our antisocial behaviour online reporting, because once it is classed as antisocial behaviour until they're actually criminalised, and I don't know how old the children are, of course, but I would report that through our antisocial behaviour because that has links into the police as well. So it will be channelled out to the relevant places. But if there is immediate threat to danger, then I would say that is a call into the police to report it.
I mean, Tracy mentioned education in schools. When I was little,
Yeah.
the police came to the school and said, you know, they held up sort of worn-out brakes and said, I mean, it was certainly we were told not to bicycle on pavements and with dodgy brakes, but I have seen sort of 2 or 3, I don't know, 10-year-old boys or whatever, herring up and down Earls Cone High Street, and everyone's talking about these electric bikes, but you know, little boys are quite heavy, going quite fast. It is, and they're not very wide, the pavements in Earls Cone. I mean, it's only from Earls Cone, and Gabrielle and I were discussing this recently. We weren't quite sure, because you can't really grab a child or tell them off or hurl them under a lorry.
Please don't do that. I suppose, so there's a couple of things. I think there's something about speaking to the school, but there's also, and I don't know if Earls Cone Parish Council have got social media pages or a magazine, but putting things in that to remind parents as well as the children. I'm not saying that that's going to work, but I know when we've had issues with older children, so secondary school children, we have actually gone and spoken to the schools. And again, you know, it could be something that the fire service can go in and do some input on road safety, bike safety, that sort of thing. Again, we can educate. It's whether or not they actually take anything on board.
Thank you.
Councillor Ramage, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tracy, for the presentation. Just a couple of things to touch on under the heading of education and prevention, for example. That amount of 14,000, is that reviewed every year? Because the amount of money that's spent on whoever actually does the process. And who actually does this? Is it the local police that go around to educate the children? Or someone who's got the knowledge? And also, what sort of benefits are we getting from it? Are you getting feedbacks, that sort of thing?
So it's a specialised education team that sits within the Fire and Police Service. So they're a specific team that go out and deliver these education programmes across the county. So they're not our local neighbourhood policing team, they are a specific team. It's they go when the schools ask them to go. There is a whole programme that is sent out to the schools every year as to what is on offer. It gets added to on quite a regular basis. So the fire service go in and deliver. And I suppose the age groups we're talking about, it is really the sort of evaluation or the monitoring that they do is they ask them at the beginning of the session what their knowledge is, what they think, you know, say for example, if it's water safety, what do they think are the dangers of water safety? Then they do the intervention, and then they'll ask the children if they feel that they're more knowledgeable and things like that. But I suppose the thing with, and I think I've said this at this meeting before, with early intervention and prevention, you can put that intervention in and hope that the children take on board what they're being told. But then how you measure whether or not, you know, say for example, water safety has saved all those school children from drowning or etc. is really, really difficult to do. So it's more of a how many people they've educated and their sort of thoughts and feedback. And obviously they get monitoring and feedback from the teachers as well, because then that may change the way the programme is delivered.
Okay. One more question. Councillor Cunningham touched on safer streets. Yeah. As a representative of Witham constituency, there was no reference in the literature regarding it was just Housestead and Braintree. Was there a reason for that?
Yeah, because it's the 25-26 annual report, so Witham would have been in the year before report.
Okay, I figured it was something. I just want clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just before I begin, if that's okay, obviously I'm one of the newest members here. Thank you very much, Councillor, for making me feel so welcome. I look forward to working with you all to scrutinise and improve decision-making at this council. The second thing I'd like to say to Councillor Dervish is to congratulate her on her campaign on social media and in the press to do with domestic violence. I think I can speak for us all when I say I think we're very fortunate as a council to have you steering our domestic violence and violence against women and girls policy at this time. My first question, if I may, just reading through this report, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I thought the pictures, as Councillor Cunningham has said, the readability. If I was a member of the public, I feel very, very reassured by this report. One thing I would say is that going through it, I struggled to get a sense of what our inputs were versus our outputs. This is something that actually with the performance management report I really appreciated. Got the nice list of graphs at the end where it's like, you know, these are the previous 7 quarters or whatever, and this is our performance, and we've hit this target. It would be nice, just moving forward, to have some idea of, we give these people X amount of money, we helped X people. I appreciate that's quite crude, but in terms of my job as a member of this committee, it just makes things a lot easier for me. Sorry, that's not really a question, more a comment. My question actually is on shoplifting. So there is a reference to it in this report. I'm aware that nationally we have a huge problem with the increase in shoplifting. I know it's not quite as pronounced, I think, in the district from what I've seen in the crime stats, but I just wanted to know what work the CSP had done in working with small businesses and larger ones to reduce shoplifting in our town centres.
Okay, so I think the picture for shoplifting is quite difficult because obviously we, the police in particular, can only deal with what gets reported, and I think that is an issue for Essex Police. And I know that they have done a lot of work engaging with local businesses. So we have within the neighbourhood policing team, there's a Braintree town team and there's also a Witham and Housestead town team. And their role is to sort of get to know local businesses and local communities. And I think their role throughout the last year has been going into businesses and actually speaking to them, trying to understand what their issues are. But I think, it's like with anything. If people don't report things, it's very difficult for police or any partners to deal with it. So they've had some real successes in relation to shoplifting this year. Hopefully you'll see some stuff in the press about the arrests that have been made and charged. So I think it's an ongoing piece of work, but obviously we have to remember that Essex Police are balancing shoplifting versus domestic abuse, etc. Not that none of them are important, but I think those town teams are in place to be able to deal with that type of crime.
Perfect. So your message to any members of the public watching this probably all 5 of them, would be to report
Yeah.
when you see it.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Sorry, if I may just add to that as well, and I think it's really important, especially for the public out there, putting it on Facebook or social media is not reporting it to the police. And I think that's a really strong message that we do need to get out, because so much gets reported on social media and the police don't even know half of that. It needs to be reported to the police and through the proper channels.
And the proper channels, is that Crime Stoppers? Can you do it through that online?
Yeah, so you can. So you've obviously got 101 in an emergency, 999, non-emergency 101. You can report online. If you don't, if you want to remain anonymous, then Crime Stoppers.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Just reading through this report as well, there's obviously a lot on Houston Town Centre, Braintree Town Centre, Whittam Town Centre, all really, really important. But I know that some of our rural colleagues have, albeit this is anecdotally, said that rural crime is on the rise. Things like tool theft. I know there is a very small part about rural crime, but I just want to maybe give you an opportunity to elaborate further on what the CSP is doing to clamp down on stuff like agricultural tool theft, break-ins and such.
Yeah, so we provided some funding to our neighbourhood policing team. They do farm watch. Because our policing team covers both Braintree and Uttlesford, so 2 quite rural districts, so across that policing district, they are trying to engage with all farmers. So we know, and I know from a rural crime workshop that I went to a couple of years ago, whilst the numbers of thefts in relation to farm machinery is not as high as other local authority areas, actually the cost to those farmers is quite high in comparison. So they are trying to engage with the farmers and set up farm watch, so they do that. But there's also a rural engagement team, so it's not the neighbourhood policing team, it's a centralised team within Essex Police that do a lot of work out in our rural communities, so things like hair coursing, as well as the theft of tools and machinery. So, and we also have a parish council. Police hold a parish council meeting on a monthly basis where parish councillors and clerks can go to and talk directly to the police. And again, I think it is again about reporting. You know, I know we had some things from Headingham recently in relation to graffiti and things like that, and we worked with the police and supported the parish council as to how to deal with it. So, again, if it's there, report it. But obviously, we have to, from a policing point of view, and obviously I'm not a police officer, but you know, where they have to deal with the crime where they're the highest and the threat, harm and risk. So, you know, things like domestic abuse is very high on Essex Police's agenda. So it's just reporting. But, yeah, the farm watch is going really well. I think they've got about 50% of the farms on board across Braintree and Uttlesford already.
And if there, apologies for this, a similar question to before, if there is a farmer watching, how does that farmer get in touch with the rural engagement team? How do they engage that?
Through 101.
Through 101. Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Just a final comment, if that's okay, Chair. Pardon me for taking up so much time. Police crime reports. I used to find these really, really useful. We used to get these monthly. They used to list all the crimes, or weekly actually. They list all the crimes that happened in our ward, and they went away. And I think they were replaced by the PFCC newsletter, which is still very helpful. But as I say, I'm someone that quite likes a number, and I like, you know, I could see trends over time. You know, Brockley South, big problem with car theft that I probably wouldn't necessarily have known about had I not had those reports, and they went away. And I appreciate it's probably a matter for the police, but this isn't really a question, more of a plea. If those could come back, I know that myself and other colleagues really, really valued them.
I will take that back.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Beavis, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to Tracy and the team for the report. And I'm always really interested to read these when I get them. And I go in and look at them before I even get them anyway, because I like to know what's going on when it comes to community safety. And I suppose as well, I sort of come from the standpoint where I've travelled around the country. I'm very lucky to go into other authorities and help them with their community safety partnerships and lead a piece of work. So I do get it and the importance of it and what it can do. But I have to be honest, over these last 6 months in the area that I represent, in fact, when I got in the car tonight, Councillor Taylor said to me, "How are you?" No, just how are you? And I have to say, sorry, I've got a fly, which is really irritating me.
It's after the Vice Chairman.
To be honest, I don't know how I am, actually. I really don't. I just feel, as a member, with a lot of tools in my kit and a lot of contacts, thankfully, that I can speak to and contact, I just feel completely let down. And I feel that the rural areas are also being let down. And I think, you know, when it gets to somewhere like Sybil Hedingham, and, you know, we are one of the largest secondary schools in this district. You know, yes, we put money into Witham, into Braintree, into Howstead, but you need to look at Hedingham and why we have the issues that we have. And I, as a district councillor, as a chairman of a committee, as chairman of a parish council, I shouldn't have to put up with that. And I shouldn't have to have my members resigning and members of the public through social media chucking everything and some at my members, and we're getting no support at all. Hopefully we've concluded some of the issues, but I had an email back yesterday from Essex Police saying there's nothing we can do to help you. We've looked at all your webcasts. We think the children are underage, and there's nothing we're going to do. And that is just not that is not what I'm reading here. That is not helping us. And I'd like to know, given what's happened in the village, which you're well aware of, over the last 10 days, what's going to happen next? Because something needs to be done. And some partnership needs to come forward with a little bit of funding to work with Hedingham School and the young people of our village to get this sorted, because I don't know how other members feel, but what I'm feeling as a member at the moment, and I've led on Debate Not Hate at a national level. I launched it in London, and it's, for a member, it's not getting better. Actually, it's getting worse. And I just feel, and you know, we talk about this, don't we, as rural members? You know, whenever we do it at council, we say, well, we're being neglected. You know, people aren't really taking an interest in the rural areas. It's not that we're just trying to represent the areas that we look after for any other reason than we care, and it matters, and we've got problems. And I do believe that somebody needs to reach out to me as the chairman of a parish council, and to Wendy as well, and spend some time with us, because the things that do get fixed in our village, whether it's a new medical centre, whether it's stopping people cycling on the streets, whether it's stopping drugs, whether it's repairing damage, getting rid of the graffiti, it's actually us. We're doing it without any support whatsoever, really. And the finances come from our parish council. And we just feel unsupported. That's how we feel. Thank you, Chairman.
So I think there's something about going into Hedingham School that we can do. Every Halloween and fireworks, we have an issue in Witham. So we went into the schools, did some work in the schools, and then we had sort of a night of action in Witham. So I've got really good links with Hedingham School through our behaviour and attendance partnership. So quite happy to have a conversation with them, because what we did with Maltins and Lift, I have to call them the right name now, is we actually went in and did some work with the young people around antisocial behaviour and how you should behave and respect your communities and things like that. So I think it's a conversation we can have with the schools. It's down to the schools whether they'll allow us to go in and do it, but I think that's probably a starting point. Obviously, if the young people that are causing the issues don't go to Hedingham School, that causes us a little bit of an issue. So I think it's probably something we can have a discussion offline about.
Thank you. Is there anybody who hasn't spoken that wishes to speak on this item? Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chairman. Tracy, thank you for the report, and Councillor Dervish, congratulations on your post this week. It was very brave, and I think we all, as Councillor Edwards said, I think you were very brave to come out and say that. In Witham, in my ward and Councillor Ramage ward, we've got a current state of homelessness and a camp set up. The response I got when I reported it was that they've not really engaged with us when we've gone to them. So, do you want me to go to street scene and ask them to then engage? Well, surely that would be that. I mean, surely that would be that. If we're communicating these, bringing all these organisations together, shouldn't then be me then deciding whether street scene should get involved? Like that should be the next step, like automatically. Like the residents are not going to be happy enough just to go, oh, they've reported it to me. That's where it's come from. Oh, they're not engaging. So what? They've just got a sept homeless camp at the end of their garden on a green area in Witham. Then I said the rubbish was there, and then street scene said, it's not to the level that we can action anything. But I mean, it's probably something I'll bring up with Councillor Dervish offline, but this kind of, if we're talking, let's get these organisations actually, it should just roll on. If not just do I want to proceed? It's like, well, I'm not an expert, I don't know, but I wouldn't want someone living at the bottom of my house with a tent, and I want them to actually get the help that they need in order for residents to actually get back to living in peace.
Yes, so when anybody identifies a rough sleeper, a street link alert is done, which goes to an organisation called Chess, and they have an outreach team. So they, when you do the street link alert, you have to do the what 3 words, which always baffles me. So the outreach team will go out and try and find where these people are, if they're actually at the tent when they go out, but they will keep going back and attempt to engage with those individuals. They're given information about approaching the council in relation to housing, and they're given information particularly if they may have mental health issues, drug and alcohol issues. The sticking point is, because they are adults, if they refuse to engage or don't attend their appointments, that's when it starts getting a little bit trickier, because unless they are causing antisocial behaviour, and then you can use some of the enforcement powers, and some of our rough sleepers, some of our entrenched rough sleepers don't cause us any issues whatsoever and are quite happy to sleep on the streets. So it is quite a tricky one. I think, obviously I can't comment on what street scene did or didn't do, but yeah, I mean, we've had situations where they are leaving copious amounts of rubbish, faeces, that sort of thing, and those sorts of things get reported in and do get dealt with. So I think I can take that one back to street scene as well. But from a rough sleeper point of view, it is really difficult, because we've got some people that have been rough sleeping for probably over a year or more, and drug and alcohol services have tried to support them, housing have tried to support them, mental health services have, and some people go on the journey and then it sort of declines. Some people engage and are successful in getting accommodation and keeping that accommodation. Other people just do not want to engage, and that is the lifestyle that they choose, appreciating that other members of the community don't want near them. So it is quite a difficult one.
Councillor Ramage, please. Thank
you for your indulgence, Chair. There was one other thing which came to light, and when I was reading the report, 4 priorities. One of them, keep safe online, is one that stuck out for me. How do you actually go about addressing that? I mean, do you have a team of people behind you? Or how do you get people to report it to us? And, in other words, how does the whole thing work? Because it is quite a big thing nowadays, where various people being scammed and all this sort of stuff, and it's a worry. And there's a lot of people out there who are not aware of these things. And do you educate the public as well at the same time to look out for these particular issues? Thank you.
So from a children and young person's point of view, that is one of the topics that the fire service will go in and deliver. From an adult's point of view, so the North Local Policing Area has a fraud team, and there's a lovely lady called Tammy Blessed who will go out into a community. So she's been to numerous community groups within this district to educate all ages on frauds, scams, online safety. So it's an ongoing piece of work. We'll keep doing it. It's not actually the council that do it. It is the Fire Service for Children and Young People, and it's Essex Police's fraud team for our older population. And obviously when we have community events, those organisations will come along. So when we have the age welfares, we talk about fraud and cybercrime. So it's just really about education, 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 and we've got a number of partners that will do that for us.
By the nature of the beast, obviously things are changing all the time. So what happened one week might be completely different the next. So how do you keep abreast of those sort of things?
So the fraud team at Essex Police, so the centralised team, they send out on a regular basis via our comms team different frauds, because there's things like romance fraud, all sorts of things. So you're right, it does change on a regular basis. So through social media we can do that quite quickly, but obviously not everybody uses social media, as we know. So the resources and information that the fraud team use in the fire service is regularly updated. So there is somebody keeping an eye on that, and that gets updated as they go along. But it's a difficult one because these scammers are very clever.
And do you find this is increasing as well at the same time?
Yes, and actually probably the most recent data I've had, which was probably towards the end of last year, surprisingly it was more young people that were getting scammed and victims of fraud than it was older people. But maybe the new laws on social media might change some of that.
Thank you. Councillor Holland, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too would like to thank you, Tracy, for the report, and thank all the people involved who are essentially highlighted by it for the work, that thoroughly worthwhile work that they do. I want to preface the next comment by saying that I am going to say this with the greatest respect for everybody in this room, but this is the Corporate Scrutiny Committee, and this report is a report for 25-26. So this is taking a retrospective look at what has been achieved, and what has been achieved is good. So I bring no question there. But for me, what this meeting and its content so far has highlighted to me is that our members around the table have raised issues which flow from this report, but they are current and for the future and exploratory of what to do in the future or how to do things. And what that highlights to me is not that it wasn't worth hearing those things, but there is more for this council to do to pick that up, because it seems to me that the commonality I've heard around the room is not quite knowing what to do about these issues and not quite understanding how to address them as a councillor. And where that takes me is to we're supposed to be in the business of looking at things, retrospective reports, and making recommendations to improve the future. And I'm not going to be foolish enough to ask this committee to agree with me to recommend something, so I'm just going to say it. It seems to me that the YouTube video of this evening's meeting would provide very good material to look at and work out how we need to shape future members' evenings, because it clearly demonstrates a need to me, what has been asked here this evening. I don't feel that it's all necessarily related to exploring the report in front of us. It's all derived from it, and just shows me that there is a significant need to look at this in order to drive future members' briefings. Because if we're not careful, our members' briefings, we end up, this committee ends up not having enough work to operate. And sometimes I feel that our members' briefing evenings are information dense, but perhaps they're not on the topics that we as councillors really need them to address. And I have a feeling, with the greatest respect to everybody here, which I mean genuinely, this evening's discussion on this report shows me that we need to have a good look at what this says to us about how we should shape the future of member briefings, member training, etc. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Holland. So we do have a number of member briefings. We have previously. We've got future ones booked into the diary. The problem we've got is members turning up. You know, we were on a members briefing yesterday evening, I believe. You know, we were getting half the councillors attending those. So I think really the message is to get the members to attend the meetings. And that's a real strong message that needs to go out to all members of all parties. But the information is being delivered. We just need the people to attend to deliver it to.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, last night's meeting, one of the great things about Zoom briefings or Teams is in the top of the screen tells you how many people are there. And we started with 24 and we ended with 22. Out of that we had a handful of officers. We had most of the cabinet, who I would have thought have been in post long enough to probably have been more across that than the people who really needed to be attending that thing. So that's my first point with respect to Councillor Derbysh's comments. But the other thing that's really important is I should provide clarity. I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with what's being done, and I know a lot of work is being done around that. That's not what I'm saying. It's about targeting it. It's about working out what the really high priorities are for the councillors to enable them to do their job in their community. And I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong. What I'm suggesting is there's something very right about looking at the discourse this evening and trying to work out whether that suggests some new ideas for new training sessions, maybe in addition. But that's all I'm trying to suggest.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott, please.
I'd like to reject everything that's just been said and say that this is the committee where we ask the serious questions and have the potential powers to call in matters or to set an agenda for scrutiny. The members' briefings have no powers whatsoever in that regard. The attendance of members' briefings varies because people have other commitments. So, for example, last night I attended Rivernorth Plainfields Association, where I am one of the two official representatives from this council. I hadn't been to it for months because it had kept clashing with Braintree. So I decided to go to that last night. But I would specifically say that when the member talks about he doesn't think that all the issues are relevant, etc., I specifically raised one of the most important issues for this county, which is 60 people a year dying on the roads and hundreds being seriously injured, a metric which is going in the wrong direction. So I really think it's a bit wrong to criticise raising that matter when it's relevant to the report that's just been presented to us.
Right, I don't actually think there was any criticism involved in what Councillor Holland was saying. It is interpretation. Because I think tonight, unfortunately for Tracy, has actually been one of the best feedbacks we've had for ages on the report. It has raised a number of issues that we've got here that Jessica has written down, I've written down, and I'm sure Jack has, and for us to take away to look at how we function this as a committee and the questions that we ask going forward. So I have got yours quite large, Councillor Abbott, because 60 people is 61 too many. There's no question about that. So, but I've got shoplifting, I've got speeding, I've got anti-social behaviour of cycling on the paths. These are all things that we do need to come tonight, and we do need to ensure that we take the proper questions going forward. And unfortunately, there are just so many things playing on our mind, on our time there, that not everybody's going to be able to attend every meeting. We all know that, but it's to make sure that we get the agendas right so that people can prioritise and we get the proper thing. Right. But with that, I would like to thank Tracy and her team for the report tonight. And are there any new questions before I move to recommendation? Oh, right. So So therefore, can I proceed to move the recommendation that we have been asked to review, which I'm fairly certain we have, the annual report and the recommendations that have been noted. And could I have a proposer to move the recommendation, please? Thank you. And the seconder? Thank you. All those in favour, please. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. So it's been moved and seconded. We have voted, and I thank you for that. And as I say, I thank you again for your attendance tonight. And you're more than welcome to stay if you wish, but but of course you are free to leave. That's right. And we will proceed with item number 6 on our agenda, which is the third quarter performance report for 25-26. Members, this report has been circulated separately to the agenda and will be presented by Tracy Hedford, People and Performance Manager. With her tonight is Cherry Root, because Andrew Willett is not available at the moment. And welcome to you both. Tracy, can I invite you to present your report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. For those observant people here, you'll notice that I'm not actually Tom Williams, who used to present the reports. I'm pleased to advise that Tom has recently taken up a new role at the Council, so unfortunately that means you're left with me at the moment until we've got somebody else to take up the mantle. However, Tom did pull together the third quarter performance report, and he has provided me with a briefing note, so credit still does need to go to Tom. So tonight you have before you the third quarter performance report that reports on the performance of the Council up until the 31st of December 2025, which was presented to Cabinet in March 26. The performance in the third quarter is broadly in line with expectations, and most projects are underway and progressing well. There are 26 projects that are on track at the end of the third quarter. There were 4 projects that were completed in the third quarter. They were in respect of the new leisure contract. The Council successfully procured and implemented a new leisure contract with Freedom Leisure, and they've also established operational contract meetings and strategic board meetings. We have also supported businesses and residents in Year 4 of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund by offering free membership to the hatchery at the Plaza, and we successfully allocated all 19 places and completed the project ahead of schedule. The programme of job fairs across the district is now complete, with 2 fairs taking place in the third quarter, and due to the success of the Midlife Employment, Skills and Health Fair, this will be included again in the programme for 26-27. Following the adoption of the Essex Air Quality Strategy at Essex County Council's Cabinet in September, Braintree Council has also adopted its own air quality strategy at Cabinet in November. There are 3 projects that have an amber status. They are in respect of the schools visits to the University of Essex. These have been difficult to arrange due to transport costs and reduction in university funding. The Council has therefore developed an alternative funding in-school sessions delivered by an educational specialist with support from university staff and students. This offers a more practical way to engage with pupils within the higher education, and due to the delivery changes and the change in scope of the project, this is the reason the project has been marked up as being amber. The revision of the tree strategy, where following a period of recruitment, a new project timeline is now needed to allow for the development of the scope of the review and obviously the detailed project plan. So the revised end date will be agreed in the fourth quarter. And finally, the other amber project is in respect of the development of the waste supplementary planning document, and this is due to changes in the planning system and government revising their deadlines. This project will be paused and a new timeframe established when the Council has the clarity it needs on the new process for developing the supplementary plans. There are no projects with a red status. However, there is one project that has been cancelled in the third quarter, where work on the renewable energy supplementary planning document has been stopped until publication of the local plan, so that the supporting guidance on the renewable energy can be informed by the content of the local plan. In respect to the performance indicators, we have 10 that have met or exceeded their target and 6 that haven't met target. For the performance indicators that have not met target, 2 have missed target by less than 5% and 4 have missed target by more than 5%. The performance indicators that have missed by less than 5% are in respect of the kilograms of residual waste collected per household and the collection rate for council tax, and the performance indicators missing target by more more than 5% are in respect of the percentage of household waste sent for reuse, recycling and composting, the percentage of fly tips cleared within 24 hours, the percentage of disabled facility grants approved on time, and the percentage of calls resolved at first point of contact in a customer service centre. The report also contains information on complaints received in the third quarter, some organisational metrics and health and safety. And moving to the financial performance, there is an overall positive variance of 1.8 million compared to 1.5 million reported in the second quarter. The main reasons for the change in forecast is due to projected increases in income in respect of planning income, which can be volatile and subject to market conditions. Treasury management income is projected to outperform budget due to higher cash balances and higher for longer interest rates. Sustainable development is projecting a positive variance, mainly due to staffing vacancies, but also from overachievement of planning related income. There are also positive variances within the operations and IT service areas, which have primarily arisen due to staff vacancies, and additionally there have been an increase in operational income. Asset management, environment, housing and strategic investment are all projecting adverse positions greater than 5% of their budget. Both asset management and environment are forecasting a shortfall in income, and there is an additional staffing cost anticipated in environmental due to ongoing interim staffing in building control. Housing is anticipating spending more on staffing related costs due to demand in service and the pressures that brings, and also the need to cover unplanned absences through agency. Consultancy support is also being used on the housing service review. There's also additional unbudgeted costs from temporary accommodation, and these costs are partly funded by the higher than expected homeless prevention grant received for the year, mitigating the variance on the general fund account. However, an additional drawdown from the housing reserve is also required to cover the residual amount. Taking into account the in-year forecasts, adjustments have been made to the 26-27 budget proposals. These include higher projected income from treasury management, car parking, planning fees and green waste services. Adjustments have also been made where there are anticipated shortfall in income with asset management and building control, and salary budgets have been updated in 26-27 and the vacancy allowance remains at 300,000. Capital expenditure was 5.6 million, with the main areas of spend being on the Whittam Community Centre, a new 3G artificial pitch in Whittam, disabled facility adaptations, planning maintenance on council-owned property and community assets. Whilst there are several projects where budgeting spend is now expected to slip into 26-27, there are also several areas where projects are continuing to progress faster than assumed, bringing forward spend in the current year that was originally profiled in 26-27. A projected underspend on the Causeway House refresh project has been included in the forecasting available capital resources for the 26-27 budget, alongside other capital resources generated to date. That concludes my update. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy. Before we do take any questions, can I just remind members that we are here tonight to examine the performance of the council and the contents of the report, not to delve into individual projects, because that is not fair on the officers we've got here tonight. Do members have any questions? Right, let me do my list. Right, thank you. Councillor Edwards, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, Sherry and Tracy, for being here. Just before I start, I'd just like to say I don't think it's actually good enough that we don't have your political counterparts here. I don't feel comfortable asking officers questions about decisions that officers aren't making. If you are here, I believe your political counterparts should be here. I understand one member of the Cabinet was invited. He couldn't attend tonight. I think there's 8 others that could have come in his stead. So I hope that this committee will demand in the future that when we are dealing with something as serious as a performance management report, that Cabinet members are here to answer for the decisions they're taking. The second thing I'd like to raise just before I get to my questions is that I actually have already scrutinised this report on the 25th of February when it was presented to Jet and Pet, and perhaps Councillor Cunningham will remember that. I mean, I appreciate the last meeting of this was cancelled because of insufficient business. But I don't see how this committee can do its job when we are scrutinising the performance of the council 6 months ago. I'm sure I'm about to ask a whole load of questions, and you're going to go, oh, well, that's sorted, we sorted that. I don't think that's acceptable. I think the council needs to get these reports done faster, and I think this committee also needs to get on scrutinising them faster. Just my first question. 2 areas in this report, prosperity 1.1 and 2.3, because I'm quite a sad individual, but not a lot to do on my Monday evenings. I went and had a look at the second quarter performance report from last year. The 1.1 physical improvements to House and Whittam town centres. That had that was red in the second quarter performance report with a projected finishing date of September 2025, and in this latest report, it's green with a prospective date of April 2026, which I understand has slipped anyway. Similarly, with 2.3, that was meant to be December 2025, green March 2026. So my first question is, has the council been entirely truthful when it's gone through and marked its homework on this, and it's giving green lights to actions that have materially slipped from one year to the next?
So, in respect to both of those projects, yes, there has been a change to the end date, but they would have gone through the full change control process that is required to change those dates. And obviously, because those dates have been changed, that will bring that project back on track, hence the now green status of them.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure that there's actually much reference to the fact, there's no reference in 1.1 to the fact that the last time this report was presented in the second quarter, that the date was September 25 and now it's April 26. I think, if I was a member of the public reading that, well, if I was a member of the public in Braintree reading that, I think it's all hunky-dory. If I'm a member of the public in Whittam reading that, I'd know it's not because the town centre works haven't been completed. But I do think the council needs to, I think there should have been a line in there, and I appreciate you didn't like this report, and it's also 6 months ago this stuff happened, so, what can you do? But I do think the council should have been more upfront on that, personally.
Agreed. We'll make sure that's included in future reports for any change controls.
Thank you very much. Just on Whittam, I'd just like to ask a question about project management more generally. In Whittam, we've got these town centre works that still aren't done, public toilets that have been shut in October, and the majority of them still aren't open, from what I understand. The community centre that's been delayed from May, again, till October of this year. Do we have a problem in this council where we start projects, we commit money, and we just don't know then what to do? We don't know how to finish them.
So obviously I can't comment on individual projects. I would have to take that question away and find out regarding that. But Sherry can probably pick up on the project management point of view.
So, if only they were all for the same reason. So there are some similar reasons for them. So, so Whittam and Houston town centres, I think, is fairly well documented and members have been briefed on a number of occasions about the ongoing issues that we have around the complexities of that in relation to the relationship and arrangements with highways as well as contractors. In relation to the toilets, so that's one of mine, it has been an incredibly difficult project that should have been simple. I need to be careful how I phrase this, because it's still ongoing and there's still ongoing discussion and conversation around it. But the works that we commissioned have not externally have not been delivered to the time scale, budget, or specification that they were commissioned for. And that is the subject of ongoing efforts in relation to the operations team who are managing that contract to try and get them get things open. They are partially open now. So a number of the units are open, but not all of the units. But also working around how that was commissioned, or sorry, not how that was commissioned, it was commissioned in the correct way, but what we can do in relation to that contract. But you'll understand I can't go into any more detail than that on that particular project at the moment. We are weekly keeping members in Whittam, the Mayor of Whittam, and also the county councillors in that area updated with progress, because we recognise that it's unacceptable. It is unacceptable for us as well, and an incredibly frustrating project. I think Whittam has progressed significantly since that the update in Q3. So if I'm answering a question in relation to Q3, it's a very different kettle of fish now, and I think we're in a much better place in relation to Whittam Community Centre now. So I think in relation to there's slightly different issues in each project. We've had strong and robust project management in each of them, good visibility from an officer perspective and a senior officer, so we've known when things are going wrong and things have been put into place to try and rectify that, with some with more success than others. There's other projects in here where that will have happened and things have been able to be rectified. And so actually you probably wouldn't even see it because it gets sorted before it comes anywhere near you. So I would say that there is strong visibility from an officer perspective and from a member perspective as well in relation to the way that we manage those projects. When things go wrong, I think we're upfront about it and we let members know as well as our officers letting senior officers know.
Sure, and I'm really grateful for that answer, particularly your acknowledgement that these are unacceptable delays. The only thing I would say at the end, facing up to the fact things haven't gone very well, is that the owner in the report, this is given a green mark. And I would say, actually, I think the council, as I've said, should have been more upfront in that instance about that.
I think that's absolutely reasonable, that where we've done change control. So change control is a process whereby you change, because of things that have happened, you may change the scope, the budget or the end date of a project. They tend to be the three things that most often get changed in a project. But having some real visibility of that in this, I think, would be really valuable for members. So, yeah, we can add that in.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you ever so much. Moving on to a slightly different subject. 2.2. Sorry, this is something I'm not sure that I've been across before. The final infrastructure delivery elements of Horizon 120 by removing excess soil. I just wondered, construction projects presumably have lots of soil. I wondered if you might be able to elaborate on what that entailed and what went on there. Or is that a question for someone else?
So that was actually completed in Q2 rather than Q3, I think, wasn't it?
It's in the Q3 report.
It's in the Q3 report. It was actually completed ahead of time. Again, it was just, there was, yes, like you say, there was a mound of soil that was left over on construction work that happened on the Horizon 120 site. There was a lot of work that had to be involved in removing that soil for various reasons. And it did take a while to get a contractor to agree to removing that. I think it has come up at previous meetings that we've had around that, and there's certainly been sort of other discussions around this. It was quite important for us to enable us to get rid of that, and we did anticipate it would take until September of last year to get rid of that. It actually happened before the end of June last year, so it was completed as part of the Q2 report. And again, it's probably something we need to obviously just highlight, because obviously now we're reporting in the third quarter. It does look like it was completed in the third quarter, so we can add in, as and when those projects are completed. But that is the due date of that project, and we just need to obviously make sure that we are reporting out when that has actually been completed.
Sure. Do you know the cost of removing that soil?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, sure, no worries. Just a couple more comments, if I may. I'll be very quick, Chair. Grateful for your indulgence. The planning department seem to be smashing out the park. I mean, they beat their targets consistently, 90% on time, over 90%, yet their targets at 70%. I wonder if we can't be slightly more ambitious with our target and up that, so that we actually know when we have fallen below what is our usual excellence standard.
Yes, so obviously that has been picked up for the next year, and we have revised some of those targets, as you'll see, in the 2-year plan.
Okay, perfect. I think that's everything I have, Chair. Thank you very much for your indulgence.
Thank you. Councillor Holland, please.
Press the button. Thank you very much, Chairman. Words are important. It's important we use the right ones, and I readily accept that sometimes I get that wrong. On the covering report ahead of the main document that's on this item, which for those who wish, it's on page 1 of the report. We have section 1, purpose of the report. Section 2, recommendations. The report is to inform Corporate Scrutiny Committee of. It's not a recommendation. It's part of the purpose of the report. Recommendations should be something very different to this. And then we have summary of issues. Once again, I'm not sure that that's really using the heading it's under accurately. So I think we need to be careful to use the right words. If it's sometimes we end up with something being put into these documents, and we're told that it's a set of options, and it reads like the contents of a technical book at the front of a technical book. I don't mean the index on the end. So I really do think we need to look more carefully at how we set these things out. Maybe the headings are all fine, but the truth of the matter is what's within them is not necessarily what it suggests it's about. That is completely trivial by comparison with the next issue. Under 3.7 on that document, we have the following performance indicators miss the target by more than 5%. Now, regular readers will have seen that list many times along the life of this council's Corporate Scrutiny Committee. Indeed, I have a suspicion that if we go back, as Jack has done, we will find that they appear in almost every performance report. And in Councillor Edwards's comments, he was talking about looking again at targets. And looking again at targets is about trying to encourage achievement for me, and so they have to be realistic. And so what I would say is, within our reports, are the targets for these areas realistic? And are we fully exploring why it is we rather often miss them? And I know, because I've asked questions around this in the past, there can be some very good reasons to do with things like recruitment, which explain it, and the problems with recruitment. Those things I do understand. But I really do think we need to, as a scrutiny committee, this is the sort of thing we should be drilling down into and try and work out why is this happening, and asking important questions like, should we be reapportioning resources into getting these areas up to scratch? Which I think is a fair and legitimate thing for us to be pushing towards on this committee. So under 3.7, the performance indicators that are missing the target, I think we need to look at the targets, and we need to look at whether we are apportioning the resources of this authority effectively to address the problems, or if it is the case that you can't achieve the targets, and this is often the case with things like waste services. I think waste services, we will consistently fail to reach the targets we set because the target is overly ambitious, perhaps. Maybe that's the way to put it. But I really would like to see us do something about that. And lastly, one of the things that quite surprised me is that when I read this report, it seems to me that the reason for, and the word that was used is cancelling the special planning document for renewable energy, is at odds with the reason for carrying on with the production of some others. And it seems to me there might be an entirely reasonable explanation that everybody in planning policy is working really hard on our local plan at the moment, and we simply don't have the resources to do that as well as all these other things. But I would say that reading the report as a whole, I'm not sure that the reason for canning, and it says cancelling when it should be postpone, back to words. The reason for canning it is at odds with the reason for continuing with others, and I think that needs looking at. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, right. So let me take the first bit, which is about the recommendations. So, well, about putting the right things in the right boxes. So we have a standard template. I think we can look at the wording around 2.1 and the recommendation. So in terms of the recommendation to this, we could change that to note. So the role of, or the recommendation to this committee is to note the performance of the council following its presentation and noting at Cabinet on the 16th of March. Okay, so we can just change that. So that's a fairly simple change, and yeah, absolutely understand your point there. In relation to the targets, so I'm going to caveat with this with the fact, Chairman, if this is okay, that this is about Q3, but if Chair, if you're happy for me to answer that as at now, I would be happy to do so, because that might answer some of those points in some of the performance indicators. So the last few weeks, it's safe to say, have been some of the busiest of my career in relation to the new waste rollout. And some of the targets that we have, so some of them that set are within our gift, but this is obviously the Cabinet sets those targets. Sometimes they set them within their gift, and sometimes it's either part of a wider partnership target, or there is a contractual or national target in relation to it. So I'm going to take each of these because they're slightly different. So in relation to waste, there are things that we'd signed up to as part of the Essex Waste Partnership, but also the Cabinet knew that these were the right things to do and the right targets to have. But it's taken us longer, and we've had to do much more in order to be able to achieve those targets. So recognising that we weren't meeting those targets, and there's 3 on there that are relating, so actually there's 2 on there that are relating to refuse and recycling, but it's still the right thing to have in there. So hopefully what you as a council and what the Cabinet agreed to do in terms of fundamentally changing the way that waste is collected across the district will help us to meet what are absolutely ambitious targets, but will help us to go get to that point. I recognise that that's taken a long time. It takes quite a long time to implement those changes, but it's absolutely been designed in order for us to be able to meet those targets. So sometimes tweaking, just thinking about how we can do things more efficiently, and process reviews don't get us where we need to be. We need to do some much more fundamental service design. So that kind of picks up the waste ones. In relation to the others, we are doing a series of service reviews which identify where there are issues in relation to performance, and where we might need to do something different. I have actually disabled facilities grants. We've reported to this committee some of the real issues that we're having with disabled facilities grants. Partly it was about running out of money, and therefore, because we get the money from the government, about how we deliver that, that helps us to deliver the disabled facilities grants. Once that money's gone, that's that. We have topped up. The council has made a decision to top that up previously. But once that's gone, then you have to wait till the next year, and then those people are still waiting in the system. And at the time, the clock doesn't stop for them. So we are back up to we're back up to having the right amount of money in there, but we've now got a backlog that needs to be cleared. So it was going to get worse before it gets better. But absolutely, these are the most vulnerable people in our communities, and therefore Cabinet was clearly reluctant to to change the target around that. So we've done exactly what you've suggested, which is review what resources are available in that space. And we have employed more people. So we've added more cost and employed more people to be able to process those applications more quickly. But it's just taking a bit of time to get them. We've got 2 more staff to get them up to speed in order to be able to do that. So again, they're different examples of how we're using that performance information that is not meeting target and using that to redesign services and improve services. Some of it takes longer than others, and I completely accept that we'd like to do things more quickly in some cases, but hopefully it gives you some assurance that that information is being used and targeted to improvement in those services. Sorry, the last one that you had. I can't answer the question around the SPD. It's not my area, and I wouldn't want to tell you it wrong. So so I will take that question away, and we'll get a response for that one.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just say thank you so much? That's really reassuring. I'm glad I asked the question. There's one of those things which is outside of your answer, which was percentage of calls resolved at first point of contact. Are we looking at the resourcing of that area as well? Because that is a long-standing one, is it not?
Yes, we have actually taken on a couple of new people within that or in that service area, and what we used the data to have a look at how best to resource that team. So rather than taking on one full-time person, which is what we had the budget for, and spreading that over, one full-time person, we actually split that into 2 part-time people to cover the busiest times that we had within the customer service centre. So we had 2 part-time people, one 10 till 2, the other one 10:30 till 2:30. And it also helped with the lunch covers because they didn't need to have a lunch break, and it helped support the rest of the team that was there. Sherry obviously alluded to the busiest time that we've had in history. We've both been here a long while, and yes, it has certainly been really, really busy. And absolutely, we have started to look at resources again in relation to that because, I don't think we could have probably had enough people on the phones, because we don't have enough phone lines, for one, for the demand that we've had over the last few weeks. But I can actually confirm that we did actually meet the target. It is all dependent on the types of queries that are coming through. And obviously with the improvements in technology, we're moving a lot of people more online so they can self-serve. So a lot of the simple inquiries that customer services used to actually deal with have now been moved online, so that actually takes out all of those queries that they would have resolved at first point of contact originally when we first set this performance indicator. So we have borne that in mind when we looked at it for 26-27. And we have also looked at how we can support the services more. And as Sherry alluded to, there is a service review going on within customer services. But one thing we want that to also look at is customer contact for the whole of the organisation, so that we can sort of be looking at what that looks like, how we need to support that from a customer services point of view, but how we can sort of be reporting out better on how we support our organisation. So that will all be included in that.
Thank you. And we would much prefer you to say, if you don't know the answer, than to try and give one, as you well know. Councillor Beavers, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to Tracy and Sherry for the report. I'm sort of following a little bit on, I think, from Jack, who's made quite a statement this evening as a new member, but sadly it's not the first time we've made the comment, and I feel the same. I don't know the best way for us to do this because I don't think it works. I mean, I haven't seen anything from any member of the committee anyway, put it that way, that since we've had this agenda, nothing has come forward before the meeting, unless the chairman's got stuff, I'm not sure. So we can only really kind of offload how we feel about things here amongst members. And I don't always think, we're trying to be difficult, but I do think things need to change a bit. And and the timely piece as well, particularly with where we're going with LGR. I mean, I'm really nervous about the transition of this LGR, and you know, today at this meeting we might be looking at a set of things here, but unless you go back and look at what you've seen previously, this could all move around, and I think over the years it has actually, and things have got sort of lost and forgotten, and I can give you some examples of that, but I won't. But heading a medical centre was one of them. Suddenly it just disappeared, and yet here we are, and it still hasn't been delivered. And yet I know what's going to happen in the future. But I just it always baffles me slightly how we generate all this and what gets on and what doesn't get on. And I just don't think that what we're looking at really is the true picture, and that's how I feel. And we can only look at what we're presented with. And actually, you've answered some of the things I wanted to talk about around the busiest time, the waste. And one would assume that when we look at the next quarter, that's going to look a bit different because of what we're going through with waste. And also fly tipping. I mean, we are always reporting fly tipping, and I've read the narrative as as well. But why does it keep sitting there like that? And it's taking back. I'm never sure whether what we pick up and take back reflects into the next report, because take disabled facilities grants. We keep looking at it all the time and saying, oh yes, it's red again. And when's it not going to be red? And what's going to happen when we go through LGR? And can someone explain that? How it's going to be in the future? Because I think, I feel, and not only just this, is, we're getting closer and closer. You're pushing us closer and closer and closer to LGR. And for us as members, nothing's changing. We're just not getting any information. And I really do think now that we should be scrutinising it more. I mean, it says fit for the future all looks absolutely fine. And so it's just that for me, really. I just feel that, almost we're being forced to look at something so historic and say, oh, yes, it's fine. And by the time we get to the next one, we're almost doing it all over again, and it's just becoming so repetitive, and we don't really seem to be changing it. One of the issues, and it's not on here, and I know what you're going to say, Councillor Beavers, is not really pertinent to what we're looking at this evening, but we all had the email, and I use this only as an example in the week, about we've cancelled all the local highways panels meetings because we don't know what's happening, and we'll wait and see what happens in the future. That's an example. But what is going on? And I just feel, that is how I feel as a member, and I use that only as an example. And the other thing I just wanted to bring up, and again, I do expect to see something on the next committee report, and it's about the trees. And we really scrutinised the budget from this committee, and we said, we want more done around more trees, and we put it in we got it changed, we put it in the budget. It's now telling us that, the person's come into post and that they're working on the tree strategy. But when am I, as a member, going to get to know what difference that's made to me as a member in my patch? And Wendy and I, are we going to get trees? And here we have the new chap, the new person in post, and it's just that, really. I think that, we should be picking out some of this stuff and saying at the next meeting, could we have the officer, this chap, come along with the cabinet member and tell us about the strategy? Because I'm a scrutineer, I'm scrutinising it and saying to you now, that's what I'd like for the next meeting, please. And I use that only as an example. Thank you, Chairman.
Before I ask you to respond, what I'm going to say to members is, I was going to say at the end, but I'm going to say it now because it is coming up more and more, is that what we do with the caller topics on how we actually put our meetings together and everything is, it works but doesn't work as well as what it should do, and is something that we as scrutiny chairman are meeting on Monday to review, because we know that what has been happening is not as effective as what members want it to be. So we're looking at meeting as a group of chairmen to make recommendations to take to the cabinet and to do what to get us a bit more meat on the bones, for the want of something better. But I will also remind members that if there are any topics at any time during the year, just to email them into myself or Jessica, and we will then do the work to take it out. We definitely accept the frustration of the committee and myself, and we know we need to change things. Unfortunately, we cancelled the last meeting because the only realistic item we had was the third quarter report. So, and we know that this committee cannot meet as infrequently as that, and it needs to meet with better things.
Sorry, Chairman, but just on that, and that really is essentially my point. If the only business on the agenda was this, why didn't we meet? Because we're all sitting here now talking about it and how we feel about it, and I'm not aware anyone came to me. I could be wrong. I don't normally miss emails, but it would have been nice to have been asked to say there's only this one item. Actually, because there's only this one item, there might be an opportunity for all of us actually to talk a bit more about this. And I think it's a shame that we didn't have the meeting.
So the other argument that we did look at was pulling people in from all parts of the district for an item that may have only taken 10 or 15 minutes. But I take your point, and that, as I say, is why we accept and know and are aware of the frustrations, and that we are looking to make changes. But I will now ask Terry to answer.
Well, I think you've answered the question. I think it's so obviously the quarterly report, performance report, is available once it's gone to Cabinet. It's for Scrutiny to decide how they want to do the business of scrutiny. So we're here to talk to the report that's in front of you. It's for you to decide what the business is and what the agendas for your meetings are. Where we are able to, we'll field officers. I can't speak for the members, obviously, but where we're able to, we will field officers to be able to support that scrutiny. And I hope, members, that you and the other scrutiny panels would agree that where we have been asked to field officers previously to help scrutinise different topics for whatever committee there is, that we have done our absolute best to provide the right quality and calibre of officers and information available to you, and we'll continue to try and do that.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, without going over all that again, I agree about the gap between this report being published and when we get to see it and speak about it, and also what we can do about it, because just noting it is not an action. A couple of specific questions and a couple of comments. Going back to the phone calls issue, and you said that more staff are being recruited, and obviously we are looking back here, 6 months. As a member, and people I know who are residents are finding it increasingly difficult to get through at all. Now, I know totally understand there's been the issue recently with the bins, totally get that. But I do remember the days, in fact I used to make jokes about it at meetings, about our response time for picking up the phone was 15 seconds. That was the performance indicator. And now you're lucky if the phone's picked up within minutes. Do we have a metric for the number of people who ring but give up? That's my first question. Second question, the trend in fly tipping seems to be getting worse, which is worrying, but it's not surprising, and I believe littering's getting worse as well from the area I represent. Would it be possible to bring to this committee, or would it be better to do it as a written question to get the stats, say going back 5 years, to have a longer running time? To your point, Councillor Edwards, about seeing the numbers. So 5 years of fly tipping data. Third point, the recycling percentage remains lower than it could be. I don't agree that we set over ambitious targets. I think we can meet them. The materials analysis suggests that. And we'll see what the statistics say when we look back at where we are now. with the new bins being rolled out. But I'm going to raise the same questions I've raised before. This 15% contamination target, which we appear to be inching towards, I can't remember exactly what the response was last time I asked this, but why is it so high? Because 15% seems very, very high. And then just to comment on the planning indicators, I agree again with Councillor Edwards about what he said about the planning indicators. The point I wanted to make on that was, doesn't it blow out of the water this nonsense in the media and from certain politicians that we need to get rid of the entire planning system because we're not, councils aren't dealing with planning applications in a timely way. Well, this council is with this system, so I would say, and I'm sure others are, so that sort of nails that one. Final point, which is possibly political, but I'm going to ask it, well, it's not really. With the announcement by the county council about ditching net zero, there are an awful lot of things in these reports, including the climate report, which is on the agenda, to do with nature, energy, waste, recycling, climate. Have we got any indication at all yet from County Hall as to whether any of the things we do are going to be affected by their different direction of travel?
Okay, so thank you, Councillor Abbott. So in respect of the customer services and the calls, yes, we do look at everything around calls presented to the customer services teams, the calls that are answered, the calls that are abandoned. Obviously, we're not going to know why they've been abandoned because they've been abandoned, so we don't know what they were phoning up for. We can run telephone reports on all of the telephone numbers that try to contact the customer service team, so we can see sometimes that they are repeated callers that somebody might try, they might hang up after 5 seconds, somebody might have come to the door, they need to go and answer the door, children could be calling. We don't know the reasons for any calls abandoned, but yes, we do have the numbers and we do have the percentage. We can calculate what the percentage of people that abandon their call coming through. I have actually been looking at some of those figures quite recently because obviously we have entered a very, very busy period, and when the customer services team is operating normally, when we haven't got a higher than normal demand on the service, that averages between sort of about 5 and 8% of calls that are abandoned. So it's pretty low in comparison with the number of calls they actually take on a monthly basis. Yes, that has increased quite substantially over the last few weeks, but that is something that is coming down as that service embeds and those calls are reducing, and we are obviously increasing our comms around all the queries that we are getting in. So it is something that we do measure in answer to your question, and it is something that we do sort of like keep an eye on. So, do you
want me to pick the other ones up? In terms of fly tipping, so 2 things I'd say on that. So if Scrutiny wanted to look at a topic around fly tipping in more detail, that would be something obviously for you to consider and discuss with the terms of reference of that with the chair and the scrutiny officer, and we would seek to support. The only thing I would say is over the next few weeks it's the same team that do that are looking at the waste rollout, so they are really, really busy at the moment. So if I could just beg your indulgence for the next few weeks to just allow them to focus on that. But you would be absolutely happy if that's what the scrutiny committee wanted us to do, to come back and talk to you a little bit more about fly tipping. In terms of recycling contamination, I think I need to take that one away to make sure that the answer I get you is full and comprehensive. So I've got some of it, but I want to make sure it's absolutely right. So if it's okay if we take that away and then come back to you, Jess, if you could just make note of that, that would be great. Thank you. In terms of the planning stats, I will pass that feedback back to the planning team and the corporate director with responsibility for planning and the portfolio holder, who I'm sure will be really pleased with the comments this evening. They've been working really, really hard as a team to be able to turn things around as quickly and as effectively as possible. In relation to county council, we have not had anything directly from the county council in relation to our climate action plan and impact on our climate action plan. But our climate action plan isn't totally dependent on the county council, so there is quite a significant amount that we can do irrespective of what the county council's approach is. And I believe the leader of the council did issue a press release in relation to that and reconfirming our commitment to our climate change strategy, action plan and targets. So within that, I think trees were mentioned earlier. They're not in this report because it wasn't on the it wasn't explicit last year. It is this year, and absolutely, I've had a meeting on it this week, and we will be coming to talk to a number of different community groups around that. So that is an active project for 26-27. You won't have seen it in there last year because the money that came in or the extra money that came in has come in for 26-27. Then this is looking at 25-26. So that's why it isn't in there. But in relation to our climate action plan, we've agreed the climate action plan that went to Cabinet in May. So that is the action plan for the year. I just wanted to just clock as well, whilst you might be considering it as a scrutiny committee, as a report at this point, the report is actually published as part of, the exact same report is published as part of the Cabinet agenda when it is considered by Cabinet. So that is available to all members, as it is members of the public, to be able to use as a source of information. So you're not waiting, or you don't need to wait until it comes to scrutiny for you to be able to see what's in that report. So I thought that was just worth noting as well. Thank you.
Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's become quite clear tonight that everyone in this chamber has the same frustration with the council. Looking at this report, from a member of the public point of view, we look at it and go, oh, the council's doing quite good. There's a few points here and there, but that's always going to happen. The matter of the fact is the council isn't doing good. Obviously, we're in an okay position, but compared to how we were last year, the year before, we're not doing as well as we should be. I apologise that it is just the two of you here tonight when, as I think we all agree, we should have more senior leadership here, we should have cabinet members here as well. I look around different councils across the country, I have lots of family that move around, and their corporate scrutiny committee mandates that their corporate directors are in attendance, that their chief executive is in attendance, so that they can actually be held account on the evening to where their failings are. And I think that is definitely something that we should explore. I'm not sure. This committee has the power to enforce that they come to this committee, I believe. I'm not sure if that's true or not. But I do think that is something we need to look into. One point I would like to quickly point up on is, you mentioned earlier about how we should change the wording. Totally agree. But I don't think we should change it to note the report. I think it should be something else to evaluate the report, to properly, just reword it so that it's not, we're here to note this report, because we're not here to note this report. As it's evident, we've spent, nearly an hour on this item, all very good work, but I think that we should have another look at. My point that I did want to originally raise was on housing. The performance indicator in the report is green. Yes, we've done well on this quarter. Overall, we are underperforming. We're on 176 homes out of the 250 target for the year. Compared to the last 2 years, which I have the figures here, we are on a downfall. We've got mentioned here tonight that we're overspending on housing, we've got all these other issues, and yet we're still in a decline. So I think that is a point, that is, a sector that we should bring to corporate scrutiny to properly evaluate, because obviously there's something going on that needs to be changed. My final point I did want to say was, again, that, another reason I believe that we should have all of our senior leadership here tonight with us is, we've got this report that says all this and that. Quite frankly, there's 4 WITA members here, and I think we're all got the same frustration. You know, we've got 3 projects in Whittam that are just delayed. We found out earlier this week that another project is further delayed again. I mean, I understand that there is, you know, reasons behind that this council can't control, but we are also all well known that there's things that have happened that are silly mistakes that shouldn't have happened, that should have been caught earlier to prevent more and more delay. So yeah, I mean, my recommendation here would be to bring the housing onto the corporate scrutiny to fully deep dive and evaluate and, you know, see what's going on there. So yeah, thank you.
Councillor Ramage, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. There was 2 things I just wanted to raise, but one of the points that come up was regarding the telephone. I've personally found it very frustrating trying to get through, and when you eventually do get through to a particular area, no one answers the phone. And why don't we have a system where the phone you can leave a message on there, or it automatically goes to another member of staff? And sometimes I know they work not in the office and they're away at home. Why can't we? It's just so frustrating. Quite often I find I can't get hold of the individual for whatever reason. And I just think the systems that we got telephone-wise now, there's more sophisticated than they used to be. Why don't we utilise that sort of thing? That's my first point. There is I mean, Councillor Williams just touched on it, as far as the specific problem we've got with a community building in Whittam, where we've been delayed. It was due to be opened in May. Now we know it's not going to be open until at least October. And there's various individual companies involved, I believe electrical or someone like that, but and someone's got to take the can for that. And I just wonder what your thoughts are as far as, well, first of all, why has it been delayed, and who should be responsible for the delay? Because presumably there's conditions laid down if it goes overruns. And thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Ramage. But as we did say, we're not actually here to ask the officers to reply on any specific project, but I'm sure Cherry will be able to give you an outlined statement. And we can take it as a direct question to Council, but it's not.
But we've touched on the subject, so I thought.
It's a valid point, but it's not fair to expect the 2 officers sitting at the end to be able to answer that.
So let me take the second one first. So just as a reminder, members, and we've talked about it extensively tonight, what you are doing is scrutinising the quarterly performance report from Q3 of last year. So pretty much every answer that I've needed to give members tonight has been in relation to where that situation is now, rather than looking at Q3 of last year. Recognise your frustrations around that. Obviously, I don't set the agenda for scrutiny and the meeting schedule for scrutiny, but we really ought to be answering as at Q3 of 25-26. Just trying to get the right year. Except I think we've already answered around the Whittam Community Centre already this evening. In relation to phones themselves, so we use a range of different technology for phones, and it's different for different services. So some we use what we call an automated call distribution software. Things like the CSC, we use it in housing, we use it in Revs and Bens. Anywhere else?
Planning.
On planning as well, whereby you go into a queue. So you're not going to an individual person, you're going into a queue, and then that call gets answered. If people go to individual direct dial lines and go through that way, then that does not get you where you need to be. We need to be making sure that we're using, where we've got those departments that have got those systems in place, that we're using those systems in order to be able to access people. Whether or not someone's at home or in the office, in terms of whether they're able to answer the phone, is pretty much irrelevant, because everything's done online now. So we have unified communications, which means that they can use Teams in order to be able to answer their phones. It's soft phones, it's not a hard phone on the desk anymore. So it's not location specific. So that's not where people are working, is not relevant to whether they're answering. If you've got any specific issues with being able to access officers, then please do let us know. What I would also say, particularly for members, is that you have the member inquiries access route as well. So if you've got and if you're not getting issues with that, then that was something that needs to be escalated, Councillor Ravage, because that's what it's there for, in order to be able to deal with members' inquiries. So in some cases, we have what we call hunt groups. So this is, if somebody is not available, you will have seen it if you tried to contact any of Management Board, there is a hunt group in place so that if one of the PAs is not there, it will automatically go on to the next one. So I can't say there's one solution for the whole organisation. There's different solutions depending on what the business need and the customer need is for each department. If there are any issues that you have in terms of being able to access people, then please do let us know and we can look into that for you.
So, you know, I can relate to at least 20 years ago where I used to ring someone, and if they were on holiday, for example, they leave a message on the phone saying, sorry, I'm not available, ring so-and-so, you know, and it used to be quite a simple thing to do, but I just find it very frustrating. I mean, if I ask for enforcement, I go through to a number, but no one answers it, and you can't think, why doesn't someone else pick it up within that area? And it's just my own personal experience, and I'm thinking, what does the public have to deal with that?
So the public, as with everybody, has a universal number to contact Braintree District Council, which is 01376 552525. That will take us through to the customer service centre, which is available from 8:30 in the morning till 5 in the evening. What we'd recommend is that people will always look to self-serve first and use the website to be able to find their query first, because the less demand we have on that customer service centre, we've talked about it tonight, it is a resource that is constrained. More people can self-serve, then that gives us more capacity within the customer service centre, but that is there as a number for anybody. So that should be a catch-all for members of the public, but also members as well. You should be able to get through to the customer service centre. They are available during the day. If there's emergencies, we have a 24-hour line that is for emergencies only. So we have a 24-hour line. So you should be able to get through to somebody, and they will always pass on your message to the person that you might try to be getting a hold of on a personal basis. They can pass that message on, and then that person will get in contact with you. But yeah, so I would say, if in doubt, use 552525. That's what it's there for.
Thank you. Councillor Holland, you want to come back?
Thank you very much, Chairman. One of the things, and this is not a debate about how you communicate with the officers inside this organisation, but what I would say is I have rather more often than I would hope for need to contact enforcement, and I email them, and I don't think there's been once that I haven't had a response within 24 hours. And that's actually pretty good, plus the fact I've got a permanent record of what's been done. So the truth of the matter is, the only reason I'd ever phone anyone is if I didn't want a paper trail for whatever it was that I wanted to talk to them about. Back to one of my favourite topics. In the covering report, this is a question really for Tracy, I feel. Inside it, 3.12, which is talking about the in-year forecasts, money. It says these include higher than projected income for Treasury management, car parking. And car parking is the one I wanted to ask about. Now, my understanding is that legally the income from car parking is effectively ring-fenced for delivering improvements to the car parks and some aspects of public transport, as I recall. So there are two things that flow from that. My understanding is that our town centre car parking is actually seeing declining numbers of customers, and yet this says that the projected income is rising. I find that an interesting thing. The other thing is that in a world where the offer that is in our town centres is declining, and that is perhaps driving the lower usage of public car parks owned by the council, or councils, plural perhaps, if the revenues are increasing, would that logically mean that we need to look at whether it is worth investing those monies into the car parks, or whether in actual fact, because of the decline of usage, there is a case for doing more with that revenue in other areas such as public transport? But it did surprise me that that was in there as part of the bigger numbers, because and are any of these other areas ring-fenced? Is the revenue coming in from planning fees in it ring-fenced to support the planning function, for example? Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Holland. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to take that one away and either speak to finance or those service areas as well, and I will be able to come back to you with the answer for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Councillor Hayes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think my first point is pretty much to echo Councillor Edwards, Councillor Beavers, and most of the committee actually, about the data we are, as Sherry said, with Q3 last year. I mean, this data is old. It's too old for us to be scrutinising effectively. We're looking at, so environment 1.1, good example. Enhance the play areas at Becker's Green should be done before July, ensuring the work's complete ahead of school holidays. Next item on the cabinet planner, the decision for awarding the contract not till 27th of July. So we're kind of wasting our time going through really, I appreciate the last meeting was the only item on there, but we were going through massive changes at the time with waste services, LGR. Surely they're the items we could be putting on an agenda to discuss. To be, if this was only going to be 10 minutes, but it was clearly, I'm not saying it next time. We might get this the Q1 report next time, and we do it in 10 minutes. But it's proven that there is, there's more for us to actually scrutinise here and go through. And then I'd echo those sentiments with the frustrations of Whitton Town. The town centre improved. I'm not going to rehash that one, but we're still waiting for ECC to give us some idea about lampposts. Something. It's a really small change that it's becoming like a joke that's still on here as a green. We're on target when it's clearly. The Wayfair sign is not even spelt correctly. So but regarding the fly tipping, I think one of my first meetings here, I asked that obviously we've got the percentage that we're missing by a certain percentage, but some of that's done because of we're collecting information of prosecutions, and asked if we had any information about how many prosecutions we are getting from that, and maybe taking that out of the stats and saying if you have 110 we're actually investigating, then surely that shouldn't count against you not clearing it in a day because you investigate. So maybe break the stat. I don't know. Make the stats a bit easier for us to disseminate. Or I don't think that's the wrong word, but for us to look at and say if we're investigating 10, are we getting any convictions from those 10? That kind of information. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, again, obviously that is additional information to what we put into the report because it's slightly over what that fly tips is. But again, if that's what scrutiny want to look at, then obviously we can pull that forward.
I won't test them now because I know they're busy.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
Councillor Williams, first, please.
Just a question in general, if I may. Can I ask what the procedure is to, first of all, have a change of the quarter that we're looking at not be 6 months old, and for a change of, so the recommendation of this item in particular is to inform and note, when I believe it should be to scrutinise and recommend things that need to be scrutinised, because I feel like we're here to inform and note a report and we can sit here and talk about it all night long, but matter of the fact is, what's the point? Because as has been very clearly shown, we can ask all these questions, but they've already been answered or rectified. So why are we here?
Chairman, do you want me to just?
Yes, please.
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Williams. Well, as Sherry sort of mentioned earlier, we can obviously look at the wording in the recommendations and make that clearer, so it's clearer what we're here to do. And you have to forgive me because my laptop has just shut down on me. But in the report, it does say, granted, it might be under the wrong heading, but it does say that this is an opportunity for the committee to look at the report before you and identify thematic issues that could form a future scrutiny review. So that is included within the report, and I think that does make that clear as to what we're here for. But also, I suppose we just want to be careful that at the moment we're looking at the performance report, and we don't want to go. We've gone quite far away from that into potential scrutiny topics, which isn't exactly the topic of this report. So absolutely, we want to identify those. But if you've got anything like that, then I would, obviously bring them forward to me or discuss with the chairman. And I have, just to assure you, I have been keeping a note of all these, and we will take them away. All your comments and everyone's comments will be taken away. I promise you.
Yeah. Yes. Moving on from what Jessica said. This is obviously a lot of frustration coming out in tonight's meeting, and with hindsight, we would definitely have done a one item agenda meeting previous, but it didn't. That's something that I've learned. So there's that. But of course, so can we try to get ourselves back on track to what we are looking at here? The frustrations of this committee are noted. They definitely are noted, and we will action and work on them. So Councillor Holland did indicate first, and then you, Councillor Davis. Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman, but I'm about to ask a question which flies in the face of what you just said, but I would really like to know what the calendar appointments are going forward in order to play catch-up, is the first thing. And the second thing, with respect, you did raise the issue of sorting some of the problems out and the future in your earlier comments. So on the basis of that, when are we going to actually see what it is that people put forward as possible subjects for scrutiny? Because I certainly, in my usual way, have written a wordy response to Jessica on this front before now. And I know from my colleagues who I've talked to say they've raised issues, they've put subjects forward, they think need scrutinising. We've seen nothing. And we've seen nothing for how long? How long have we been here? Since 23, haven't we? 3 years. Yeah. We haven't seen anything. The picture we get as members is that we suggest things, it goes into a black hole. The powers that be in this organisation, director level and what have you, consider it, and then we're told what we're allowed to think about. Have I got that wrong? Anybody? Right. So that's where we're at, but the important thing is to work out. Okay, I think everybody is quite willing to scrutinise these reports properly in a timely fashion. So can you give us an idea of when we will be looking at these things so we catch up with ourselves? Thanks.
We'll have to take that way and look at the space and the time availability. But you'll get an answer. You'll definitely get an answer. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I did. I just want to be really clear with members of the Scrutiny Committee. Management Board do not, never have, never will decide what the business of the Scrutiny Committee is. I have been here. I've been in a management board position since 2017, and we have not decided what the business of scrutiny is. So I just to clarify that to give members reassurance. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I completely accept that answer, but on that basis, I'd like to know who is deciding that, because we're not seeing anything.
Councillor Bevis.
Thank you, Chairman. And I say this, and Sherry and Tracy would know this, with my complete respect for everything that you do. I'm very long serving, as I know both of you are. But I just feel that I'm disappointed that we cancelled the last meeting, because I think what should have gone on is at the last meeting we looked at the quarter report, and at this meeting we should really be having a discussion about, we've pretty much got 2 years left. So what are we going to do? Because I have looked at what's gone on to the scrutiny topics, because I'm one of those members that put stuff forward. and I have done over the years. And I know, I've seen the list, we've all seen the list, and in fact at one stage at this committee we threw it back, didn't we? And we said, no, we're not doing it because it didn't fit what we wanted. But there's no way in 2 years we're going to get through that list. It's not going to happen, and we can't add anything else on because we're just not going to have the time. And the setup is different now because we used to have like task and finish groups and go off and do a piece of work, and so it's very different. But what you have told us, Chairman, is that tomorrow night you've got a meeting of scrutiny chairs. Monday afternoon. Well, as far as I'm aware, there's only 2 scrutiny committees, this one and corporate scrutiny.
There's policy and governance.
Yeah, so there's only 2.
There's governance and audit as well.
Well, that's more regulatory, isn't it?
But it's that would be,
That's going to be there as well, is it? Okay, fine. But, you know, I did, at the last opportunity, I did feed in that I think we should be looking at the rollout of the bins, not being difficult. I thought it would be an opportunity to be a critical friend. And it was turned down as a scrutiny topic. I then got an email to say actually it was picked up, Councillor Beavis, and it was going to corporate policy. But I was told at quite a late stage, and I was about to go on holiday, so I couldn't make that. But actually, I did watch it overseas, and it was a really, really, really good session, brought on by this committee. But I just feel that we could have really have had this evening to look at where we are, what we'd like you to take forward to this meeting that we've only found out tonight that you're having, and plan for the next 2 years. Because we really haven't got that much time. And I think one of the things we really should be looking at is how is LGR going to impact on all of this? Because that's what's going to shape the future now of our work as scrutiny members. Thank you, Chairman.
if I might suggest, Chairman, I think we've strayed now from the performance management report slightly into internal committee business, where we're discussing the timing of meetings, how we select a programme for the future. Perhaps if questions are done on this particular item, we could move on and let these poor officers go, if they're able to.
Right. Right. Okay. Right. I know people aren't happy with the statement to note the report, but because it is on our agenda tonight, we do have to have that as the item. Everything that has been raised, I'm sure between the three of us, we have got noted to be able to go forward, and we'll make sure we properly liaise with everyone. So please, could I ask that there is a proposal to note the report with all the statements and questions that have been raised recorded. Thank you, Councillor. Just a second. Thank you. All those in favour, please, members. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Tracy and Cherry, for coming tonight. And you are welcome to stay if you wish, but by the same means, you are obviously free to go. Right, members. We will move on to item agenda number 7, which is the decision plan for the 1st of July 26 to the 30th of September 2026, and this report is set out on pages 28 to 30 of our agenda. Do members have any issues that they would like to raise in respect of the decision plan? Councillor Edwards, please.
3 issues, if I may, Chairman. First off, the 4th quarter performance report, that's going to Cabinet at the end of July. Just based on everything that we've discussed here, I think it would be pertinent, perhaps, if we could add an extra meeting of this committee to ensure that we deal with that agenda, we scrutinise that report as soon as we can, after it's gone to Cabinet, before it's gone to Cabinet, when those papers are published, and whenever is appropriate. But I think, the strong feedback from this committee is 6 months is too long to scrutinise, which I think we both agree. So perhaps inserting an extra meeting would be pertinent there. The dog control PSPO, I've got concerns about that. I've looked through what would it actually mean for residents, and it looks like we're telling dog owners how they should control their dogs. You already get fined if your dog's out of control. You already get fined if your dog fouls somewhere where it shouldn't. I'd like to know the policy process that went into that even going out to consultation, whether or not there was political sign-off for that decision to go out to consultation, I assume there was. I don't know if that would be a full-scale review, but I think having the officer and their political counterpart here for 15 minutes at the start of the next session, I personally would find that quite valuable. And then I appreciate this may be controversial with some members of the committee, the climate action plan. I would like some scrutiny around the climate change reserve, £1 million in the climate change reserve. I'd like to know if that money is just sitting there and what this climate action plan will do to mobilise that money to decarbonise the council, and indeed if we have gone as far as we can, how we can use that money better in other areas of the organisation. I appreciate that will be controversial with some members of this committee, but I think it behoves us to ask the question, even if the answer is everything's hunky dory, we don't need to do anything. Thank you.
That's what we're here for. Anybody else, please? Right. So could I have a proposal to accept the report and to action the comments made by the Vice Chairman? Thank you. Second. All those in favour, please. Thank you. The decision plan has been made. Members, we have no urgent business this evening, so that concludes our business for tonight. The next scheduled meeting at present of this committee is the 10th of September, but we will be in touch with members with some ideas around tonight. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you. If I may, just before we formally close the meeting, I don't know if we're allowed to, but could I make a recommendation that I've had a look through our governance framework sitting here and our constitution, and the powers of this committee are that we can enforce that corporate directors, cabinet members be here should we demand it. I think it would be beneficial that when the performance quarter things come to this committee that we demand that they be here to answer questions, especially if we're going to move forward, you know, not be 6 months behind, and we are going to pick it up the pace a bit. You know, I think it would be beneficial to have them here if we're going to have them all in present sort of.
Just to update you, Councillor Williams, rather than as a recommendation, I did receive an email from Councillor Bowers, who would have been the relevant cabinet member for this report this evening, that he will, or another cabinet member will be in attendance at the next meeting. Unfortunately, the planning went awry for this meeting, so they weren't able to be here, but they are intending to attend future meetings for this report, and certainly for other reports to have the relevant cabinet member to come and support the officer. So it's not so much the recommendation, but that will be happening regardless.
Right, so thank you, members, for your attendance tonight. Thank you for the lively debate. What better way was there for me to spend my birthday than here? And I therefore declared this meeting closed at 9:32 p.m. Thank you very much, everybody. Safe journey home.